Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Again, loads and loads to chat about. I feel like I say that every single video at the moment, but there really is so much to chat about with regards to Celtic at the moment. This is a transfer video. We'll get on to some of the players, I think 6 in total, that Celtic have been linked with in the last week or so. But first, Ange Postecoglou has just done his first in-house, in-person Celtic interview. Celtic TV, it was just a one-on-one interview on the Lennoxtown pitch, and it's fair to say it's garnered quite a positive reaction from the Celtic support. It seems like the standards and professionalism at Celtic is about to go up a notch from what it was last season. 67 Hail Hail will get the chance to meet the new Celtic manager and ask questions of him and Chief Executive Dominic Mackay tomorrow. We've been invited to the big unveiling press conference. Not quite sure how it's going to work, to be honest, but what I do know is that we will have a video for you tomorrow evening on the day. So you can look forward to that. More great content on 67 Hail Hail. Meant to say, by the way, I was looking at the analytics for the channel today. They make pretty positive reading. The one thing that really stood out for me, and it is amazing, is that our share of views that have come from Australia has gone up from 2.3% in May all the way up to 7.2% in June. So what about a 12th of you that watch the channel are watching from Australia? Say hi if you are one of those people. Remember to subscribe to the channel. And before I forget, I need to say hi to a couple of people. We've got Daniel from Paisley and Danny from the slightly more exotic Burma, or I think Myanmar is its kind of 21st century name. I met both of those guys on the train back from the Scotland game the other night. Great fellas, thanks for watching the channel. Right, I'm kind of rattling through stuff today because there really is loads to get through. Going to use this video to talk about some of the players that have been linked with Celtic over the last, week or so. Some of them, there's certainly something to the interest. Some of them are maybe a little bit speculative, but we're going to run through them all. Basically, if you watch this video, you should come out the other end a more educated person with regards to Celtic transfers as Ange Postecoglou gets ready to start the Celtic rebuild. Right, we're starting with a player that most of you should be familiar with. Ryan Gauld, you will know him from his time at Dundee United. He was the guy who was billed, I think, as the Scottish Messi. I don't know who called him that. I don't know if that was just a generic term for him, but someone did at some stage. And even if no one did, I just did it there. He moved off to Portugal, I think to Sporting Lisbon. Never really quite made it at a major club, but certainly did well last season. He was playing for Firenze, who got relegated from the Portuguese top flight. And when you consider they got relegated, it's not a bad feat to score 9 goals and assist another 7 in 33 top flight matches. Celtic are reportedly watching Gauld, according to Manuel Veth, who is a journalist for the likes of Transfermarkt and Forbes as well. Very good stuff. He's out of contract at Firenze with MLS side Vancouver Whitecaps, said to be leading the race. The chat is that they could pay him $3 million per year. I think that works out at around about £50,000 per week. So obviously Celtic aren't going to give Ryan Gauld 50 grand a week. We'd have to be way less than that. But if we weren't paying a transfer fee for him, with him being out of contract, maybe we could afford to push the boat out a little bit. This is the kind of signing I would like to see us make. I'm always in favour of signing young, talented Scottish players, and there's another one we're going to come on to on this list in a second. I think it's a good image for Celtic to have these talented young Scottish players. My reservation with Gauld is that, for me, it doesn't really make much sense to actually recruit him. Why? Because we've got David Turnbull in that position, who is probably a more prodigious talent, probably got a higher ceiling than Gauld, a few years younger than Gauld. We've also got Tom Rogic, who you would assume would go on to be a relatively big player under Ange Postecoglou. And we've still got Ryan Christie at the club as well, although he's been linked to a $5 million move to Monaco. Maybe if Christie moves on, there's space for Gauld. but I'm still not quite convinced that there's enough space to shell out big wages that it would be to bring the former Dundee United man in. Right, we've touched on Aaron Hickey on the channel before. It does seem like this is heating up a little bit with Celtic, one of the many teams credited with an interest in the former Hearts fullback. He was a guy who I think made his major debut in the Scottish Cup final that we won, the one Edwards scored twice, had a really good game there, then went on to have a pretty good season for Hearts the following year as they were relegated, and then left for Bologna, Serie A Bologna last year, 1.5 million. Frustratingly from a Celtic point of view, given that we could have signed him last summer and that he was a former Celtic youth player, he's now said to be worth around double 1.5 million, which if you're quick at maths is 3 million. This report comes from Nicolo Shearer, who has nearly 150,000 followers on Twitter. Can be a little bit hit or miss, to be honest. He had the rumour about Enzo Maresca being Celtic's number one candidate, I think, a way back in March. Maybe that was the case at that stage, although with all the Eddie Howe stuff that emerged, not totally convinced myself. In terms of Hickey, this one does just keep heating up. I think it could be a goer. Hickey was injured for a lot of last season and played just once since January. He was actually sent off in that game. I do think he is a good talent, another young Scottish talent, and I would be in favour of bringing him to the club. But if we're paying £3 million, could we bring in a better option who is maybe more ready right now to be our left back? Could we sign a more ready-made player to step into the first team? I think Hickey's at a very similar level to Greg Taylor at the moment. Again, he's probably got a higher ceiling in future years, and you could argue that blooding him into the team now, he'd be good enough and certainly not any worse than Greg Taylor, and could then kick on to even better things in future seasons. Yeah, I'm just not 100% convinced that it's the best option at left back. Not going to be totally against it though if we do bring him in. Reports from the United States actually have credited Celtic with interest in centre-back Cameron Carter-Vickers. Now, you may be familiar with his name. He's a 23-year-old English centre-back. He actually plays his international football over in the States. I think his dad has US citizenship. He's been at Spurs from the age of 12 in 2009, but he's kind of spent the last 5 years on loan, farmed out to, I think, 6 different clubs, as is often the case with players down south. I mean, it's no slight against him that he's not managed to break into the Spurs team. Most recently, actually, on loan at Bournemouth last season, seemed to have a good season for them. He was meant to be out of contract this summer at Spurs, although the reports were that they have taken up the option of a 1-year extension. Think of it as their Anthony Ralston type thing. Larry Henry Jr., who's from USA Today affiliated outlet SBI Soccer, that's a mouthful and a half, claims that Celtic are interested in Carter-Vickers. He strikes me as the kind of player that would do quite well. I just think immediately of Kelvin Wilson type signings whenever we go for a championship type signing. Now, I know Celtic fans will often think we should be signing players from top flights of countries. We should be maybe signing players, don't laugh, like Shane Duffy, that kind of pedigree. Obviously, you'd hope it would go better. But I do think that the Championship has a lot of good defenders in there that can more than do a job at Celtic and could improve at the club. Hate to say it, but you look across the city and they've signed a lot of players, centre-backs especially, from down south in the Championship over the last few years. And in general, they've done quite well. Carter-Vickers, I think, would be a good signing. If it's a loan signing, not too for it. If it's a permanent signing, maybe just a wee fee given he's out of contract next year, then I'd be much more of a fan of that. Right, Valentine Roux. This is probably one of the ones that I'm most excited about. There's another one we'll come on to. I think he's the last one in this video, so saved the best till last. He's a Sporting Lisbon right back who spent last season on loan at Besiktas, helping them to the Turkish top flight and Turkish Cup double. He was a regular for him. Sporting Lisbon paid £7 million for him in 2019, signing him from Dijon, but foot injuries seemed to spoil his first season. So first season at Sporting Lisbon, lots of foot injuries, don't know what was happening. Second season, on loan at Besiktas, played a lot, did quite well. Sporting Lisbon are said to want £6 million for him this summer, that or thereabouts, with Marseille seemingly leading the race for him. Celtic have been credited with an interest by Turkish journalist Ekrem Konar. Valentine Roux is a former France under-21 cap. He was in the same group of players that Moussa Dembele and Olivier Ntcham were, so that gives you an idea of his ability. He's not yet broken into the full French team. Come on, Valentine, what are you up to? Easy side to break into. And a wee look on YouTube seems to suggest that he really likes a tackle. If this compilation video was 4 minutes long, he spent about 2.5 of those minutes on the ground making slide tackles. Can be a little bit rash, I think, but certainly possesses a lot of quality going forward. That's an obvious now if you're, I think, any fullback in the world, maybe other than Jonjoe Kenny. On Jonjoe Kenny, he would certainly be an upgrade on that. Probably quite similar to Jeremy Frimpong, maybe a better defender than Jeremy Frimpong, maybe not quite as explosive going forward. It's a fair amount to spend on a fullback, £6 million. But with the rebuild that's going on and the money that's hopefully going to come in, if Ayer, Edouard and even Ryan Christie move on, the money should hopefully be there for Celtic to do that. Right, Andros Townsend, this one probably fits into the very unlikely to happen. I'll profusely apologise. This one comes from TalkSport, where Andros Townsend, I think, has been doing some work for them over the Euros. He's out of contract at Crystal Palace, I believe, this summer. He spent the last 5 years at Palace, and he still was a pretty regular appearance maker for them last season. He played in 34 of their 38 Premier League games, only scoring 1 goal and setting up 5. Not great numbers, but it was in a struggling Palace side in the English Premier League. What happened was that Townsend was asked, would he move up to Scotland? And he said he'd be open to moving abroad. Don't see it being Celtic. I think he is 30 next month, so he's not exactly, due retiring. I would take him, certainly, but it's one I just don't see happening. I think wages would be an issue. Right, Mario Vuskovitch, and this is the one that I am most excited about, and I've got a major comparison for you in a minute or so hold on for that. Celtic have reportedly been linked again with the defender. He's only 19 years old. He plays for Hajduk Split, where he's enjoyed a bit of a breakthrough season for them. We've scouted him in the past, that has been reported, although it was thought that Torino were leading the race to sign him and pretty much had it in the bag. However, we've been linked with him again with £5 million, the reported fee. In 2018, he was included in the Guardian's Next Generation list, a pretty decent list to be included in. But he didn't make his Hajduk Split breakthrough really until after COVID. That weird kind of 8 or 9 weeks we had after COVID, which was still the remnants of the season before last. Last season, he really made his breakthrough for Hajduk Split. He played in 29 of Split's 36 league games. He was linked to Napoli in that time, but the Split president stopped that from happening, saying that he was their future talent. What makes him unique here, and here's the comparison coming, is his ability on the ball. There's a compilation going of him playing on YouTube, and he spends more time shooting than actually defending. Now, I don't know if that's a great thing, but this guy takes free kicks. And you know where I'm going with this now. This seems to be the closest thing to Virgil van Dijk I've seen in a while. Now, I'm not saying this guy is going to be as good as Virgil van Dijk. He's probably more likely to be a Christopher Ayer. But you would certainly take that. £5 million, again, is a decent outlay for Celtic. It's probably not a great deal in modern football, but this is a guy who is on the verge of a first Croatia call-up. He's seen as a future of the Croatian national team. He made his under-17 debut at 15 years and 3 months. He made his under-21 debut at 18 at Tynecastle against Scotland. And as I say, he can't be far away from a full Croatia call-up. This is more like it, Celtic. These are the rumours we wanted. Let's get in about it, lads.